What's up, people? I'm Shaggy, the Opinionated Hippie. Gonna rank Steven Stills' 70s albums today, and then I will do all the other albums in a separate video, probably later this week or early next week. I recently am doing, or elsewhere on this channel, I'm doing a Neil Young deep dive. I never really got into Steven Stills. There were a lot of comments encouraging me to get into Steven Stills, so I decided I would get into Steven Stills. So I've been listening to his albums only for about a couple months now. I had checked one or two out over the decades. In my ranking of sort of CSNY artists, I went full obsession on Neil, got into David Crosby somewhat, Stills not as much, and definitely not Graham Nash in just my experience. There's too much music out there, and sometimes you have to make hard choices. But I've really enjoyed this deep dive so far. Reminds me a lot of Eric Clapton's 70s run, just an artist who's a guitar player who kind of specializes in laid back, chill West Coast rock, even though Clapton's not from the West Coast. Like simple rock, not like easy to play rock, but just like not hard rock, just like pure rock with like subgenre dips into country, into blues, where Clapton would go reggae, Stills goes Latin rock a little more. But yeah, 7 albums in the 70s. I'm not doing that super session from the 60s. I'll drop that some other time. Gonna do the 2 Manassas albums in here. All of them have good tracks, even though the latter two, Steven Stills might be kind of losing his image, kind of struggling to see who he is as disco comes in and Stills tries to adapt. It gets kind of murky in those last 2 albums. But for the most part, I think a pretty enjoyable run of albums with one in there that everybody said was the best and just might be his best. But anyways, I'm going to talk about him from 7 to 1, then I'll drop the list at the end, and then in a couple days I'll do the rest of his albums. All right. Oh, the connection to Zappa, Flo and Eddie. Once again, there's a Flo and Eddie connection. They appear on one of these albums. Flo and Eddie, there's also other connections. Flo and Eddie mention Crosby, Stills, Nash, and Young fighting backstage at the Fillmore East. So Flo and Eddie, once again, provide us a connection to another artist. All right, let's get on to album number 7. Number 7 is his 7th, 1978's Thoroughfare Gap. Disco happens, and so Steven Stills thinks that disco also must happen on his albums. The opening track, You Can't Dance Alone. No, you can't, especially when this is your version of dance music. You can't dance at all. This is just every little element of disco that makes disco disco, the sort of cheesy strings, the backing vocalists, the disco bass groove, just the oversaturated production. It's all here on the first track. There's even the opening lyrics, I think, are "Got a fire, deep within me burning." All right, Stills, whatever. We got horns. Yeah, we also got the horns right there. It's just, it sounds like a, hey, let's stay relevant with the current times kind of hot mess. There's a couple good songs on this album. What's the Game has some disco bass on it, but not as many thrills. Just kind of a tight pop song that maybe sounds like something Boz Scaggs would have dropped. Woman Yeva, Woman Carrie, I believe. More Spanish, which he does a lot of, sings in Spanish. Kind of mid-tempo rock. It kind of has a really good vibe, just kind of works. A little bit of a Latin flavor, but it's not overdone. Nice piano bass, kind of a slightly darker song. And then Low Down, not a Boz Scaggs cover. The heaviest thing on here by far. Kind of really works. Almost has a southern rock attitude about it, like something maybe Skynyrd would have dropped on an early album. 3 good tracks, but then you have just a whole bunch of bad stuff. A bunch of stuff that starts off really good for maybe the first couple bars, and then like, oh yeah, we got to add strings and horns and all this other crazy stuff. And so it just becomes way overproduced. You have a really not good cover of the Allman Brothers Midnight Rider with what I believe are gated drums. Is this we've been blaming Phil Collins all these years, but should we be blaming Steven Stills for introducing this atrocious sound to the world? That sort of midnight sneakiness vibe that the original Midnight Rider has is completely gone. A horrible cover of Not Fade Away. Maybe one of the worst covers I've ever heard. I just don't think it's good. It doesn't even feel like, it almost feels like doesn't even feel like the band is playing this in the studio. This is one of those songs where it really feels like each member came in and played their part separately and they just kind of cobbled them together. It just, there's no like coherency. Horrible. I just don't like it. But it's definitely not Can't Get No Booty, the closing track on here. Some disco funk bass with some bluesy slide. It almost sounds like a song like if you're watching like a Will Ferrell or Adam Sandler movie and they were in a band and they were trying to like impress the ladies, they would play this song, Can't Get No Booty. Yeah, it just, there's potential here. I think some of the songwriting is okay, other than maybe the opening and closing tracks. But like the effort to be contemporary, the effort to be late 70s disco and dance and to like meet the production values of that stuff just really, really hurts this album. But there is potential and there are 3 decent songs. But I would say easily my number 7, Thoroughfare Gap. My number 6 is his, I guess his 6 if you include the Manassas stuff, Illegal Stills, which came out in 76. I think this is more inconsistent than anything. About half the album has some pretty decent songs. Maybe not the greatest songs, but they're definitely not bad. And then the other half are just, the songwriting's weaker. There's not really an edge to any of the songs on here. More like production mess where you just have, it feels at times just too many instruments doing things. And maybe if you pare it down a little bit, it's going to be a little bit stronger. But there are some highlights. I think the opening track, Buying Time, is pretty good. Kind of just some really upbeat, cheerful 70s pop rock. The Dream is Lost, America. The Dream has been lost. And then we get a couple songs, Midnight in Paris, kind of soft rock, which is about midnight in Paris. We got some French lyrics going on. There's a lot going on in this song that we don't really need to be happening. Different tongues, kind of nice, not nice, but it's a piano synth ballad. You got some hand percussion, which you got a lot of on these. Weird, funky middle section that maybe just doesn't quite work, but maybe does. Interesting little song. Soldier might be the highlight on here. Really nice. You're just your 70s pop rock, very melodic, some little Latin groove in there. Lyrics are kind of depressing. It's an anti-war song, but the groove is really great. The piano is great. The storytelling's a little cheesy. We get a nice little solo section that feels like it came out of like an early Steely Dan album. Just a good song. The lyrics can be a little cringy maybe, but the intent is good. Probably the best song on here. A cover of Loner that just doesn't work, which is interesting because there's a song on another album we're going to get to higher up the list that pretty much just steals the melody from the Loner, Neil Young song. State Line Blues, awesome, chill acoustic blues, only 2 minutes long, just really about gambling at the state line. Really nice little vibe that he needs to lean into more, just that sort of guitar player playing the blues type thing. Closer to You, just really good, smooth 70s adult rock. Sometimes that's all you need in life. A song called No Me Diegas, Don't Deny Me. Latin flavored. No, this one leans too heavily into it and just feels costumey. Ring of Love, kind of a 70s cheesy ballad with some bouncy pop that goes big, doesn't really work. And The Closing Circling, pretty good little song. Really nice groove, some nice rock and energy with guitar and piano. We need more guitar. I just think Stills needs to flex his 6-string muscles more often than he does on these. But yeah, it's an inconsistent, okay album with some entertaining songs and other songs that just could be better. Yeah, Illegal Stuff should have more edge than this, but that's my number 6, Illegal Stills. My number 5 is his second Manassas album, I guess his 4th album overall, 1973's Down the Road. I like this album. This is a really entertaining album. It's a couple weak spots, but for the most part, I think it's a pretty good album. I've read a lot of reviews recently in which people claim this was a significant drop-off after the first Manassas album. I don't think it's that significant of a drop-off. I think this was a really good listen. Opens up with Isn't It About Time, which is a nice protest song. Isn't It About Time We Learned? question we've been asking ourselves a lot here in the United States in 2025. Great opener, great sentiment, nice rockin' 70s slide infused little protest song. Lies, second song, a little bluesier, nice piano, nice organ, nice little riff, just really good coned in Stephen Stills version of 70s rock. Great slide guitar action. Pensamiento, thoughts, people, thoughts. Upbeat, slightly Latin vibe in Spanish. We got some flute, which feels out of place. Another one of those just anytime sometimes he just adds instruments or adds things that are like, all right, I know it's the 70s and you have freedom to just be crazy. Sometimes it doesn't work. I don't think the flute works on here. So Many Times, which is more of a slower country folk type thing. Searching for answers in these dark times. Business in the Street. Don't put your business in the street. Just don't do it. Nice 70s rock with some slide. Like we're very much just your typical 70s rock with some really good slide playing on almost this entire album. Do you remember the Americans? I love this song lyrically because it's about how come we just don't pick up hitchhikers anymore. I love the fact that you could just hitchhike across the country, and Stephen Stills is woeing those days because now truckers just drive on by with a no riders sign in the window. So yeah, I know you rider. I'm not picking you up anymore. Little bluegrass country vibe on this one. Down the Road, not a Little Feat cover. Awesome slide, bass-driven little song. Sort of a Dr. Hook meets Little Feat. Nice funky blues action. Also flirting with like a Leonard Skinner Southern rock vibe. Excellent song. City Junkies, straight up steals Rolling Stones Let's Spend the Night Together sort of melody. That's fully there with the piano. Dun, 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 dun. It's there. Like I just reminds me of Let's Spend the Night Together every time. Guancuanco de Vero. Definitely of a more traditional Latin vibe that I don't think works also. It just kind of stands out from the rest of the stuff. And then Rollin' My Stone. We get a nice funky Hendrix drenched opening, some great organ, some great bass. By far the funkiest thing on here. We need more of this stuff, Stills. You do this well. But yeah, I don't think it's a bad listen at all. The two Latin songs maybe stand out as not fitting in, but I don't think either one is horrible. Yeah, and there's some pretty good stuff, some fun lyrics. But yeah, I like this album. That's my number 5, his second Manassas album, 1973's Down the Road. My number 4 is Stills, the first one he released after Manassas broke up, so technically I guess his 5th. Yeah, just kind of up there with Down the Road, a pretty consistent album, a couple really good moments, maybe a couple weak moments, but a good, solid Stephen Stills listen. Turn Back the Pages is sort of this big, dramatic 70s mid-tempo rock that opens up. We switch into like an up-tempo vibe for the chorus and kind of go back and forth between those vibes. Nice little tasty solo. Some nice bursts of energy throughout this somewhat frantic song, but I don't know. It's a good opener. My favorite changes is next, which is kind of cool. We kind of cool it down a little for more of a mid-tempo vibe, not as crazy. Nice sort of bass-driven energy, some really cool guitar. A flirting with a really like 70s soft rock vibe, but the bass is really good. The instrumentation is pretty good. It's just kind of a nice, smooth rock song. My favorite changes. But I think one of the better ones on here. My Angel, more of this like smooth kind of 70s funk, but like the smooth, not the hardcore stuff. Really nice keyboard action in here. Almost sounds like something that would drop on like a George Duke solo album from like the mid 70s, just that kind of smoothness, with some really nice sort of Crosby, Stills, and Nash vocal harmonies. Kind of a different vibe than the first two songs, but it works. It's the 70s. You can do this stuff, and when it works, the payoff is pretty big. In the Way, calmer little 70s number. Again, there's just a lot of little elements of just being slightly funky. Maybe he could lean into it anymore, but if he did, maybe it would just make it cheesy. But yeah, that 70s keyboard sound is here that just gives it that vibe. A lot of that on here, which works really well. Love Story. I think he falls in love with a lady of leisure and chases her down, kind of like a Stephen Stills version of Simple Twist of Fate in a weird way. Piano ballad energy. To Mama from Christopher and the Old Man, really nice upbeat acoustic 70s rock with some really good bass playing. First Things First. Start off with some percussion. We go into some 70s rock. It's a cool groove, but not much to it. We get a really cool cover of Neil Young's New Mama. Nice bluesy riff to open it up. It's probably the heaviest thing on here. Though it's the heaviest thing on here, mainly because it's just taking New Mama and kind of doing fresh things with it. Definitely more successful than his Loner cover. And then we go into this like 70s soft rock vibe, but then the main riff is super fantastic. Interesting cover, but I think he succeeds. Interesting that he's dipping into the Neil Young catalog as much as he is. As I Come of Age, which has like a piano-led Crosby, Stills, and Nash vibe. Shuffle, just as bad. Kind of reminds me of Steely Dan's Chain Lightning a little bit, has that sort of groove in there that's kind of works. Some really nice little up-tempo shift in the last 30 seconds. Nice little groove to close things out. Cold World, really nice organ and guitar chill vibe that sets a really cool sort of laid back, just tasty little groove. We go upbeat for the solo, which we don't need. We need to stay chill. This is one of those where the tempo shift, I think, undermines the awesomeness of the chill parts. Yeah, I just one of those where like, you had a great thing going. Commit to this vibe for the whole thing. We don't need these up-tempo things. And then we close out with Myth of Sisyphus, sort of a piano organ dramatic ballad type thing. Not a bad album. Some really good stuff on here. I think it could be better. A couple of songs, maybe just different choices are made. But yeah, not a bad little outing. My number 4, Stills, 1975. My number 3 is his debut album, Stephen Stills, released in 1970. I left the album cover up for longer than the others because I think that's one of the best album covers of all time. Could play an acoustic guitar in the snow with a giraffe. Absolutely fantastic stuff. Apparently the giraffe is like a dig at a former lover, which I think is brilliant. This drops to number 3 because the opening track is Love the One You're With. I do not like that song. I've never liked that song as a kid. I despise that song. I don't know why it bothers me. It just does. So I have to dock this album points. Other than that, this is like your typically awesome 70s template Eric Clapton style album where you have all these like subgenres thrown in and your pretty laid back rock approach, maybe a little more aggressive than other stuff that he does. But just no matter what you throw in at this point, like it just all works. There's flute in here, but for some reason it works on this album. Everything just works. Other than the opening track, because I don't like it. Second song, Do for the Others, just a nice folky California folk acoustic song. Church, Part of Someone. You got a church vibe, you got a gospel-y vibe, you got choir vocals, you got a little bit of soulfulness. I think it's a waltz. Old Times, Good Times, great, nice driving riff that reminds me of another song, but I can't think of what it is. There's sort of a Steve Winwood vibe musically, that sort of whatever Winwood does, when it's kind of a little soulful and a little rock and a little bluesy and a little all that. Some nice organ, some nice bass. Really good song. Old Times, Good Times. Go Back Home. I was listening to this song. Really nice bluesy vibe. More guitar centric. I was like, this has hardcore Eric Clapton vibes. This is what Stills needs to do more often. Then I find out Eric Clapton plays on this song. So I was right. Just some really nice soloing on here. Pockets throughout the song. Nice closing solo. Sit Yourself Down. Kind of a 70s pop mid-tempo ballady vibe. To a Flame. Another slow ballad. This has some kind of reminds me of like a Crosby track from Crosby, Stills, and Nash. One of those, that kind of sort of slightly slow burning intensity that at the same time is a little bit just kind of like hazy and trippy and woozy as Crosby could be. Black Queen, sort of the guitar showcase for Stills on here, but it's bluesy acoustic, slinky acoustic blues, kind of a nastier edge. He's doing a lot of like singing, playing at the same time thing. Definitely just like a one-man showcase of what Stills can do vocally and on guitar. I think he needs more of these throughout his catalog. I think the rare instances when it's just him and the guitar are some of the highlights of any of these albums. So you're selling yourself short, buddy, as a guitar player. Cherokee, the just random 70s, just a fun 70s song. We got horns, we got sax, we got flute. We're just kind of all over the place on this song. And then we close out with We Are Not Helpless. This kind of reminds me of like a Graham Nash penned Crosby, Stills and Nash song. Just your gentle full band thing, kind of inspirational, kind of sentimental. But yeah, this works. It's a typical 70s template, all over the map, subgenre-wise album of a guy who's just doing a bunch of things he likes to do. And he needs to do more things like Black Queen, I would argue, and more like heavier blues things like Go Back Home. Like, he's got the potential for that. I wish he had leaned into that more. This was his first album. You know, I know he doesn't towards the end. But anyways, yeah, it's a pretty solid album. My number 3, his debut, Stephen Stills. My number 2 is his second, Stephen Stills 2, because it's hard to name albums. Pretty much the same template as the first. This one has the addition or the bonus of not having Love the One You're With as your opening track, as far as I'm concerned. I just think it's fun from start to finish. I think it's just a little more consistent than the debut, even though it's pretty much the same template. Yeah, just a really fun, good listen. Change partners. Kind of maybe minding the same lyrical vein as Love the One You're With, but I'm okay with it on this one. I love the melody, nice sort of 70s breezy pop rock, little country flavor thrown in there. Nothing to Do But Today, kind of a funkier, tighter blues rock, kind of a nice start-stop rhythm to it, kind of fun, kind of funky. Fishes and Scorpions has this kind of slow burn-in vibe that flirts with The Chain, Fleetwood Mac's The Chain, just one of those like acoustic guitars bringing that sort of smoldering energy. We eventually drop into to a bigger 70s rock groove, but it works with this. There's a mystery to this song that maintains. And lyrically, the Fishes and Scorpions, they refer to, this is a song about astrology. So we get a lot of astrology shout outs. So see if your sign is represented. But I like this song. It's a good song. Sugar Babe has one of my favorite lyrics of all time. How do turtles talk to one another? I'm a big turtle fan, the animal. If you go to my classroom, I got turtles all over the place. But yeah, nice piano energy, nice mid-tempo 70s vibe, kind of ballady, little CSN sort of energy here. Know You Got to Run, some banjo energy, but it's kind of dark, it's kind of intense. We're bringing the darker side of the banjo out in here. I like that. Open Secret, got some horns that are dropping in. Nice little piano jam with some drums in the middle. Just, yeah, that's out of nowhere. Nice hand percussion jam thrown in because why not? This is the 70s. Relaxin' Town, very early 70s rock sound. This is about getting old, maybe not wanting to tour, maybe just wanting to chill and relax and enjoy life. I like the lyrics on this one. Singing Call, delicate acoustic thing. There's a night bird singing. I think that kind of defines the energy. Anytime you have a bird referenced in a song, you pretty much know what it's going to be about. Kind of builds into nice momentum. It's like a stream. This song's just like a stream floating down a sunny mountainside. Ecology song, completely different vibe. Not sure where this came from. Big horns. It's fast. It's like almost doesn't work, but this is the 70s and the commitment is there and it's just randomly out of nowhere, but it kind of works only because everything else is so good. Word Game, pretty good song about prejudice, about fearing the unknown, lyrically pretty fantastic. Almost a Dylan-esque vibe, tapping into that. Acoustic, full, mid-tempo type groove. Marianne, nice funky, kind of a Highway 61 vibe. Kind of reminds me of that musically. Just a little maybe not chaos in there, but maybe a little bit more of that like frantic energy. And then we close out with Bluebird Revisited, which is just great pop. I think there's a trumpet solo in here. Just a really nice soulful performance. Yeah, I think this is just a strong album from start to finish. It's a couple weird, like, that's only going to make it on an album in the weird 70s, but in the best way possible. And how do turtles talk to one another? How do they talk to one another? All right, we got one more. Probably could have guessed what it was in the beginning. Let's get on to it. My number one is Manassas, officially his third, the first of two Manassas, the band albums. The album's also called Manassas because it's hard to name albums. And this is a double album. I got a lot to say about double albums. I'm not going to say it all here, but I think I'm always fascinated by someone's approach to a double album. I think in the 70s and 80s and late 60s, double albums are an important statement when an artist decides to do that. The limitations of vinyl and how you lay out tracks and all that. I think it's fascinating. I think there's a lot to be said about it. But I like Stephen Stills' approach here. 4 sides, double album. Each side has a different theme, has even a different name. Side 1 is sort of the live, jammy rock set. I think he would do side 1 live and the songs all sequence, segue one into another. The vibe is good. The energy is good. Fantastic way to start off the album. Side 2 is the country bluegrass side, the wilderness. At first, I wasn't too happy that all of these songs were back to back to back because it's probably my least favorite side just because I'm not a bluegrass fan. But the more I've listened to the album, the more I'm like, I really appreciate this. And it all kind of works. And there's a couple really good songs on this side. The third side's a little more varied, but excellent music. That's Consider. And then the fourth side is the rock and roll side, the rock and roll blues side. The longest song is on side 4. Really good stuff. And yeah, this is, the more I listen to this, the more I like really appreciate just what's on here. Opens up with Song of Love. Really nice, just a great, super tight, funky vibe with some really good organ. That goes into Rock and Roll Crazy / Cuban Bluegrass. Nice slide infused 70s rock. Jet Set, sigh, nice mid-tempo blues rocker with some really good swagger in here. Kind of up the groove for the last 30 seconds to get funky. Anyway, has a kind of a Steely Dan vibe. Number of these songs sound like that first album, Steely Dan type pop rock, that sort of adult pop rock or whatever you want to call it, but in a good way. Anyway, super nice chill keyboard sound. And then we have Both of Us, Bound to Lose, which is just this awesome kind of album side closer. Another one that is an early Steely Dan vibe. Really nice tasty guitar. This is the one that kind of steals the melody of the verses for The Loner, but it works, does it well. That's side A. Side B, we get the country bluegrass stuff, Fallen Eagle, just full-on fiddle to start off. I mean, we're just full-on bluegrass country right here. Not my favorite sound. Kind of sounds like something Fish would have done, but that's where we're going. Jesus Gave Love Away for Free, gospel-y, country-ish, piano ballad-y. Colorado, awesome song. I think the highlight of this side. Great bass action, sort of that just 70s mid-tempo folky rock that I just think works really well. So Begins the Task. Very CSN vocally, kind of chiller 70s rock, soft rock. Hide It So Deep, slower violin-led country ballad. And then Don't Look at My Shadow, which gives us more of an upbeat country honky-tonk vibe. We're touching all the sort of like folky country bluegrass bases over the course of side B, but Colorado, it's the anchor right in the middle that I think keeps it all together. Side 3, we get a little more of a bunch of different sort of songs. It Doesn't Matter. Another one that just has a really nice early 70s Eric Clapton, Steely Dan vibe, kind of that 70s adult rock with some just tasty guitar in there. Johnny's Garden, gentle acoustic rolling vibe that's really good. Very CSN vibe. Nice hippie song. Nice song for the hippies. Bound to Fall. A little frantic. Slightly more aggressive. Has sort of a Battle of Evermore. Just like rolling kind of acoustic guitar energy. How Far. Almost a Doobies vibe with like the acoustic 70s rock. Some really nice guitar energy. This little electric guitar sneaking its way throughout. And then Move Abound, kind of psychier, a little bit more hypnotic, folky, kind of trippy, kind of hazy, kind of heady. Really good song. And then The Love Gangster, which we're back to sort of a funky 70s guitar. Is my love worthy of a love gangster? Yeah. And then side 4, rock and roll, man. It's here to stay. What to Do, just some really nice kind of slinky, countrified rock, nice slide guitar presence in there, really good vibe. Right now, really nice tight driving guitar riff, great just moving energy, just like we're moving forward right now. We got to go. Let's hit the road, people. Let's get this underway. By far the longest track on here, The Treasure, take one. Just your mid-tempo, upbeat 70s rock. Kind of a really big, like a really great groove in the verses. We get a nice long solo in here. We shift into a new groove about halfway through for like a really long type solo. Very Clapton-esque at times in this. Get some wah-wah action. Some really nice slide work at the end with a little more blues energy. I like this. I wish Stills had taken his time and done things like this more often. I don't think his guitar playing ranks up there with someone like a Clapton, but I'm a huge Clapton fan. But I think this was interesting. And then, going back to the thing I wish he would do more often, Blues Man. Slow, acoustic blues. I kind of like when Stills does this. I think he does this well. But yeah, this is a good album. There's some filler on it, but it's good filler. It's the kind of filler you want. It's like white rice in a Thai meal. Like, you're not going to order white rice and just eat white rice by itself, but you want it as filler because it soaks up the sauces, and so every once in a while you need it. It's really good. It's a good album. I really like it. I'm going to listen to it again, probably today. All right, that's my number one for Stephen Stills in the 70s, Manassas. And that is what the list looks like in typewritten form. I think all of these albums have good songs on them. It's just as we go down the list, they get more inconsistent. I think Stills maybe loses his identity. Like, the effort to incorporate disco just doesn't feel organic. It doesn't feel like if he had a history of like sort of committing to the funkier, dancier grooves and flirting with that energy early on, it would make more sense. It would feel like a natural evolution, but it kind of doesn't. So that last album can be really uncomfortable at times, but definitely the top four, maybe even the top five, just really very 70s. Stephen Stills, these albums are so representational of the 70s, but in the good way, and when the 70s brought the chill, laid back rock energy. All right, that's all I got. I'll drop another video covering pretty much the rest of what he's done in a couple days, maybe early next week. But let me know your thoughts on Stills, things I messed up on, yeah, all that kind of stuff. Those of you who encouraged me to deep dive, thank you. It was enjoyable. I'm glad I know more about Stephen Stills. But yeah, that's all I got. Subscribe, like, share, comment, do those things. Thank you for watching. Peace. Talk to you later.